What's good, everyone, and welcome back to another reaction video. Today we're going to be reacting to Film Theory. What the frick is Smilehood? And I'm going to be honest, I have no idea. I actually have legitimately no idea what the frick's going on here. All I can say is it looks like horror fodder, and that's all I know. So, let's get right on into this, because there's not really much to really comment about this. I never heard of Smilehood and all that, so I guess this is going to be something new for me today. If you enjoy this reaction video, hit the like button down below, hit the subscribe button to support the channel, support the content provided, and so on and so forth. Notification button to be notified immediately when new video comes out. And if there's any videos you'd like to recommend that I should react to, comment section, put in the comment section below, and I'll react to it as soon as possible. Now, the link to this video is going to be down in the description below, so be sure to give Film Theory some love and support for the video that they made. With this all said, let's start this video. I'm really curious to see what's going on here, because,
The creator of The Boiled One and the Oddity Compendium is back with a brand new analog horror video that picks up the earliest bits of lore he ever created. And this weird, terrifying new video has got me asking, what the heck is Smilehood? Hello Internet! Welcome to Film Theory, the show that's turning 10 years old this month. Yeah, really. On June 2nd, 2015, Matt, Steph, and the rest of theorists launched this brand new channel, bringing our unique brand of overthinking to the film and television industry. I've actually been a part of this channel since the very beginning, believe it or not. I was both a writer and editor for Theorist in these early days of Film Theory, and worked on multiple videos in and around the launch. In fact, Matt first told me about Film Theory when I first joined the team.
Okay, that's actually a bit of interesting lore when it comes to Film Theory. I did not know that.
Back when the idea of a channel dedicated to theories about movies was really novel. Man, how times have changed. Anyway, we have something really cool planned to celebrate the 10th anniversary of Film Theory later in the year that we just couldn't quite get done in time for June. But I wanted to call it out all throughout the month. A lot of awesome people have poured their blood, sweat, heart, and tears into Film Theory, and it's just such an honor to be a part of it. And one of the big things Film Theory has always covered is independent analog horror, and today is no different, loyal theorists, as we dive into Smilehood, the latest project from Dr. Nowhere. If you don't know, Dr. Nowhere is a man named Silas Orion, one of the incredible newer analog horror creators here on YouTube, though he has a years-long and very impressive catalog of work over on other platforms like Instagram. I gotta say, I just love his art style. It strikes that right balance of familiar, surreal, and uncanny that just hits perfect for unsettling horror. Silas exploded onto the YouTube scene last year with a video called The Boiled One, which he followed up with the Oddity Compendium. We actually did theories about both of those last year, go check them out, and I've been itching to jump back into more of Silas's work. Really, I was just waiting for the right time.
I think I reacted to The Boiled One. I don't remember. I would have to look before the end of this video to see if I did.
And oh boy, has the right time ever arrived. Bursting into the room like a frickin' jump scare, my guys. Just a few weeks ago, Silas released Smilehood Conception, a brand new video that's, well, okay, this one's weird. There's a lot of very surreal imagery and atmospheric music, but most importantly, it features the return of the Locust, a monstrous entity that first appeared in Silas's earliest videos here on YouTube. Yeah, just absolutely creepy stuff, right? I'm gonna be upfront with you here, loyal theorists. We don't have all the answers for this one yet. We are truly getting in on the ground floor of this new story, and I want to solve it with you. I want us to go through each of these videos in this series so far together, look at all of the clues and symbolism we can find, and try to figure out what the heck is going on here in Smilehood. And just from the pieces I've been able to put together so far, this is a tragic story of loss, resulting in a monster that eats you from your very phone and computer screens. All right, let's work together, loyal theorists, and dive into the mystery of the Locust and Smilehood. So, as always, let's run through the videos to start with so we're all on the same page about what's going on and break down what we can along the way. The first video in the series is actually the very first one that Dr. Nowhere uploaded to his channel, Concept Toe 1. Honestly, this one is pretty straightforward. We see some entity in a room with beige wallpaper. It's giving like desaturated back rooms, and I love it. The entity, which has been dubbed the Locust, is looking straight at us through the screen, and it's slapping the glass. Yeah, there's a creepy blackened human hand repeatedly slamming the glass, cracking it, but the video cuts off just before it's completely shattered. And honestly, just really quick before we keep going, I have to say, I love the way Silas has mixed mediums here. The unsettling art he made combined with the almost rotoscoped human hand is really cool and just really accomplishes the horror feel. The second video, Concept Toe 2...
Not gonna lie, it does really get that kind of feel, that kind of feel. It gives an inhumane monster that just fills you with dread. And I can respect that in all honesty. Seems like a really cool thing to do. But, back into this, I guess.
Has a bit more meat when it comes to the actual events happening on screen. Here, we open on someone filming either a window or a screen or something like that, and on the other side is the Locust, who keeps saying hello. Incredibly creepy. The person filming says hello back, but doesn't really get a reaction. Eventually, and understandably, he asks the Locust to just go away, but is also like the chillest man ever about it.
Please go away.
Like, I don't know about you, but I just have like a little bit more urgency in my voice there, but, you know, whatever. Anyway, the Locust eventually starts slapping against the glass of the monitor or window or whatever, scaring the person filming. The glass shatters and the Locust enters the room. It chases the person filming to a closet where he hides, but the Locust finds him and eventually charges him. The narrator almost certainly dies here. Finally, we end on a broken screen with text reading, "The body appeared untouched." Then we have the third video, unsurprisingly named Concept Toe 3. Here we open on what looks like old photographs of some strange room and art made by kids. It's very vintage, very Instagram circa 2012. And just to note, this looks like the same wallpaper we saw in the background of the Locust in the first video. We're told to get up, to rise and shine, and that good children are up bright and early. Good children do play pretend, but do not play with their food until it's all gone. All throughout this part of the video, we see images of the Locust interspersed with everything else that we see, as well as a heart dangling inside of the same room with the Locust. The video then suddenly cuts to an old-school, AIM-esque chat log between the point of view character and someone named Dominic9999. However, Dominic is acting strangely. Dominic has been more distant lately, and his typing has become very choppy and weird, and our POV character has been seriously worried because of it. Despite it being 1 a.m., Dominic asks for a video chat, which the POV reluctantly agrees to. However, when he answers the call, it's not Dominic, it's the Locust. Clearly, the Locust has taken over Dominic somehow, and now he's come for this POV character too. The screen cuts out, and we again see the same beating heart. As captions read, none of it makes any sense. Everything inside was gone. So, okay, let's take a step back here and go over everything that's happened and what we can figure out from it, because once we get into Smilehood, things get way weirder. First off, somehow the Locust is moving from place to place through computer screens. When I first watched Toe 2, I wasn't sure if this was supposed to be a monitor or like a window or something else, but after Toe 3, this is absolutely a computer screen, and this is actually further confirmed in the Instagram version of Toe 1. Here, the caption reads, "Thing that is trapped behind a screen that will eat your organs if it breaks out." So, makes sense, and that's why he's slapping against the glass. The second part of that caption also explains why the Locust is even doing this, going from place to place and killing these people. And also, the captions in the videos suddenly make a lot more sense, right? Quote, "The body appeared untouched," and
That doesn't make sense to me.
everything inside was gone?
Yeah, those two things don't make sense. What does it mean the body was left untouched? Like, it didn't cause physical damage, but mental damage? Spiritual damage? Something like that? Come on, that's a strange thing. And saying everything was inside was gone, that's weird. What inside was gone? are we literally talking about uh the location this thing was at, the location it went to, or are we going into a more morbid sense of thing and actually going to the fact that the body it touched or went to was empty? A morbid thought, I know, but it's still some brain food.
Clearly, though the exterior of these bodies remains somewhat intact, the locust is harvesting their inner organs. I also wouldn't be surprised if the hand we saw in the first video,
Okay,
the
so I'm
one
right.
that was like strangely human looking, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if that was literally an arm that the locust stole. But why? Why is the locust going from place to place, screen to screen, taking these organs? Simple. He hungers. During the AIM chat we see, the locust explains that he's starving. Help. Seems pretty straightforward, and this actually even fits with the name. Locust insects are known to emerge in giant swarms and consume crops. They can cause serious damage to a community's agriculture, so the fact that the locust in this series is doing the same, but to people, it just makes sense. Also, while we're on the subject, you know how I just said that the locust said that he was starving? Help? Well, that was actually the old name of the original video, Toe 1. Yeah, actually, the names for all three of these videos have since changed. Originally, back when I was first looking into them, doing research for the boiled one, Toe 1, 2, and 3 were called Starving.Help, Love.Thumper, and Making.Friends, respectively. Silas has since gone back and renamed them to the consistent Toe 1, 2, 3 naming scheme, and I'm not sure we can call any of that old information canon anymore, but it is worth noting regardless. And one more thing to note before we move on here, but a detail that you might have missed, these videos are being watched by someone, and I don't mean us, the viewer on YouTube. In both Toe 2 and Toe 3, there are moments where we see an old school volume bar on the screen, as if someone is turning up or down the volume. Someone watching these tapes back. But who? Well, in the description of each of these videos, it says, courtesy of the Organet Enterprise. T-O-E. Get it? Toe? The Organet Enterprise is clearly some sort of organization collecting information about the locust, and perhaps other similar entities and anomalies. There isn't a ton of proof of this yet, but I wouldn't be surprised if this was an organization similar to the SCP Foundation or the Ephrata branch from the Boiled One video. So, okay, how does any of this connect to the new video, Smilehood? Well, let's dive into it, loyal theorists, because this one is strange. Smilehood is way more non-linear and experimental than the other Toe videos, so we're going to be jumping around here a little bit to group up a lot of what it shows just to get more context for things. We start out with what looks like an old school television set flashing. In the static, we can see things like the locust in its room, but maybe more interestingly, I might be seeing things here, but I think you can see a face in the reflection of the TV here. It might just be some artifacting or something else weird going on, but given the fact that we've established that something is watching these other tapes, I wanted to point it out. Here, you can see it a little bit more clearly if you lower the contrast and up the brightness, but anyway, moving on. Suddenly, the TV switches to a weird slideshow of several...
It kind of looks like more of a mask than anything else. But that's just my opinion on the matter.
buildings. Some look like apartment complexes, others like other residential buildings, but one of them has a sign reading Smilehood Institute for Exceptional Children. Now, that name might look familiar to you, partially because it's the title of the video, but also because we've seen it before. In Toe 3, there was an ad for something called Smilehood embedded into the old school AIM chat service. This one looked way more like some sort of toy, or at least something that came inside of a box instead of an institute, though. I wonder if Smilehood in this world is some sort of multi-conglomerate brand. Like, you know how in our world that Disney has their brand of movies, and toys, and hotels, and parks, and the like? Maybe Smilehood is similar here. Anyway, all of these buildings clearly look like some sort of school or home for gifted or troubled kids, and I'd bet that a lot of these images are supposed to be of the Smilehood complex. For example, one of them has a basketball hoop on the side of one of the buildings. It would just make sense for that sort of thing to be in a communal home or school like Smilehood. The television from earlier also has like a sticker or a pin that looks like a flower on it, so it could be inside of Smilehood or some way related to it. Either way, that one does feel like it's in a child child's room of some sort, right? On the other side of things, though, we also get a bunch of images of very rural-looking buildings and deserts, a small home in a field, and animated shots of a barren wasteland, and a farmhouse out in the desert. There are a lot of these shots, but one with a dead tree cut down in the sand, its branches gnarled and looking almost like the locust. There's also a fly that buzzes by here, which may or may not be a nod to the entity, but anyway. There's a man in a couple of these shots, looking out over the cliff in the desert behind the farmhouse. Another shot shows him inside at a table, looking upset over some sort of paper. On the wall in this shot, we can see a photograph of the man and a woman holding onto him affectionately. This could either be his wife or daughter, but I'm going to guess wife just because of how they're framed. Anyway, this man's name is likely Arlo Bloom. The very last shot of the video shows this man much older while we hear this voiceover.
What else is there to say about Arlo Bloom?
And also, Arlo just looks much creepier here in this shot, like his face is sunken in and he's twitching a lot. Something ain't right with this man. Intercut with all of these shots are several images and clips of the locust entity, still trapped in his room next to the giant beating heart. In some instances, he's calling out hello over and over. But in others, he's just sitting alone in silence, though he does seem to notice us watching and look straight at the camera. There's also a shot of what looks like a bunch of organic tissue or tubes, and what looks like the bottom of a chin. I think that this is the inner workings of the locust, but I mean, it is a little bit hard to tell just from what we see here. Elsewhere in the video, we also see a couple of shots of flowers, and I'm not just talking about the sticker on the TV from the beginning. When we first see them, they're stuck into the ground next to this lake or ocean. It almost looks like they were put there by a couple or family or something. But later on, the second time we see a flower, it's all by itself, off in the distance. This struck me way more like some sort of grave marker than a plant. Though I did have a bit of trouble pinpointing exactly what these are supposed to be, from my closest estimation, these flowers look like yellow roses. If you don't know, flowers have a whole language of symbolism associated.
Yellow roses. I'm trying to remember what yellow roses mean. It's something important, I know that. No, got nothing.
With them in literature and mythology, and, interestingly, yellow roses are supposed to represent joy and happiness. So, isn't it fascinating that we see the number of flowers continuing to dwindle as the video goes on? It's also worth calling out that in the shot of the single flower off in the distance, the one that kind of looked like a grave, connecting some dots here, but perhaps the woman in the picture we talked about earlier, the one with Arlo, well, what if she was killed? That would kind of make sense to bury her and then have this flower marking that grave, right? But if that is the case, what killed her? Well, in this shot, we see a tree and its branches in the foreground, and on that tree, we see a locust, as in the insect. It's haunting the space over this grave, so is this symbolic of that locust entity causing that death? And just before we move on here, but there is a final shot of a single flower inside of a vase that's been knocked to the ground. But honestly, this flower looks way different from any of the other ones we've seen in this series. If I had to guess, this one is actually a turnera, but notice how they both have 5 petals. In flower symbology, the turnera is meant to represent beauty and endurance, which makes this one in the vase grayed out and almost withering away. A bit more ironic, doesn't it? Now, flowers aren't the only weird symbolic thing in this video either. At one point, we see a shot of a fruit in the dirt with a big bite taken out of the bottom of it. At first, I thought that this might be some sort of like a red onion or something. I mean, they do have layers, but the more I looked at it, the more I actually think that this is a pomegranate. Notice how both this and a real pomegranate have the weird area at the top where a stem would come out of it, and the inside of this fruit in Smilehood looks juicy, for the lack of a better word. That's very in line with pomegranates, and would also fit with the horror element of the series, because I mean, the interior of a pomegranate just looks, well, it looks bloody. That really just works with a series about a monster stealing organs, right? Anyway, just like flowers, a lot of fruit also have symbolic meanings, and a pomegranate's meaning? Fertility, life, and rebirth. So, this fruit having a big old bite taken out of it before being discarded in the dirt? It's like something has taken a bite out of something's life and thrown it away. Maybe like the locust and that woman. Food for thought, one could say. So, okay, Okay, that was kind of a
Fair.
lot, and it was really weird. But what's the story here? What can we put together from all of these small, scattered, disparate pieces? Well, I believe that Arlo Bloom was in charge of, or some employee of the Smilehood Institute. He had a loving wife, someone important in his life that brought him a lot of joy, just like we see symbolized with the yellow roses. The Locust, however, may have been some sort of child at the Smilehood Institute, someone twisted and mutated into this monstrosity. How that happened, I can't say, but at the very least, I can say that he is a kid, and there's a ton of evidence for that. First off, throughout the videos, we see several shots of a toy inside of the Locust's room. This is one of those activity cubes, which has different functions on each side to keep a young child's attention. At least here in the States, I remember these things popping up at the dentist or doctor's offices in the lobby to keep toddlers occupied, so it would make sense for somewhere like Smilehood to have these toys, and therefore that the Locust would also have one if he's a kid at the Institute. Secondly, remember how I said that the titles and descriptions for all of these videos with the Locust changed? Well, originally the description for Making.Friends read, "It's a kid in there, presumably talking about the Locust." This would also explain why he wants to make friends, his childish way of speaking, how he's constantly craving attention and calling out hello. It all just makes sense as something a lost kid would do. And I might even go out on a limb here and say that the Locust is Arlo Bloom's very own child. In that same shot where we see the photo of Arlo and his wife, we also see one of a male figure playing an instrument that kind of looks like a horn or a saxophone or something. That could be Arlo himself playing the instrument, but this really reminded me of the sort of photos you would have of your child while they're in a school band or something like that. But the thing that really cements this connection between Arlo and the Locust for me, why I think that they're connected, perhaps even father and child, in the shot where we see Arlo looking out over the desert, take a listen to the sounds of nature in the background. Do you hear that sort of insect chirping? That is a locust, like the real-world bug. But here, compare it to this. At the very least, Silas is drawing a direct connection between Arlo and the Locust here, and like I said in my analysis of the actual video, that connection is almost certainly the loss of Arlo's life, perhaps at the hands of the Locust itself. This would explain the symbolism we see with the flowers and the pomegranate. This child of Arlo and his wife, represented by rebirth in the pomegranate, has killed his wife, thus taking away Arlo's joy. And now, Arlo's basically lost his sanity because of it. Silas draws a lot of symbolism in his videos from darker human emotions like fear and guilt, like we see in videos like The Boiled One and Boy in the Bath. And that's probably playing a role here in this story too, with the Locust representing that sort of grief of losing a loved one. Again, there's a lot here that I don't think we can quite put together yet, or at least I couldn't. Like, there are a few pieces I noticed that I don't know where they quite go yet. For example, there are a few other breadcrumbs with the Locust on Silas's Instagram page that I didn't include here because I wasn't sure just how canon they were. And in tow too, after the volume on the tape is turned down all the way, we hear a heartbeat. That tells me that whoever was watching this video back was terrified of the Locust, which, I mean, fair. He's scary. But there's also a giant heart next to the Locust in his room. And that seems like more than a coincidence to me, even if I can't quite make the connection. Like, is that implying that the Locust is the one watching the videos of his own murders? Is he the face that I caught a glimpse of in the reflection of that TV? I'm just not quite sure yet, and I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments if you're able to connect some of these dots that I'm just not seeing. Either way, I know that Silas has just packed so much into the story, and I just cannot wait to see where he goes with it next. But until then, remember that it's all just a theory. A film theory. And thanks for 10 years, guys. Up next on Film Theory, The Boiled One was just the beginning. Its creator, Dr. Nowhere.
Okay, that's... I thought I could, like, figure something out. Like, the boiled one and all that. No, I don't have anything on the top of my head. But... yeah, I got nothing. If I did react to it, I don't really remember. And that's honestly a bit annoying. Not gonna lie. But let's see. I can't say that this is an interesting analog horror. Because, it leads to a lot of stuff being put out there. Let's see. Experimentation? Maybe. the other possibility is that, I don't know, curse and magic, but I don't see that being fully the case. Because, I don't know, it leaves too much to really say for sure on the matter. Yeah. Can't really think of anything on the top of my head, in all honesty, that would actually fit with this. So, yeah. What is there really else to say here? I know there might be something else in here, but I'm drawing blanks when it comes to this. The only thing I can say is its name is interesting. A locus? That's an interesting name to use. And if it's harvesting the organs, let me think here. If it was like that, then why did it not touch that giant heart? Maybe it did and it just snapped? Maybe they were put in a situation where they grew hungrier and hungrier and refused to consume that heart. And like it originally had a different appetite back then, but because of the negligence, it now feeds for this specific food that it wants. Maybe. It would make sense on a practical standpoint. What do you guys think? Tell me what you think in the comment section below, because that's the only thing that's coming into mind when I'm thinking about this. So, yeah. Hope you all enjoyed this video. If you did, hit the like button below, subscribe, and yeah, actually tell me what you think. I'm drawing blanks. Like, I don't really know what to honestly think about this one. Like, there's ideas in my head, but none of them seem to be really working. And with the more information gathered, it just seems like every idea I had just like went down the drain. And I'm drawing blanks. Though the yellow flower is interesting. Yeah. Anyway, hope you all enjoy. And yeah, I'll see you all in the next video. Bye.